Hey everyone, welcome back to Gaming in the Keats. I'm your host Chris, and today I am bringing you the Force of Destruction. Or I should say, my opponent is bringing the Force of Destruction with his Miley Cyrus list. So there's going to be a lot of Mag Gits, wrecking teams, pump wagons in the form of Orcs and Goblins. So let's see if my Dread Elves can stand up to all the madness. Alright, so you can pause, take a look at my list. I have not changed it from the last battle report, from the Raptor Attack version, because I didn't want to change it. I enjoyed playing it so much, and normally I tweak things around from report to report, and just to see what I like, what I don't like, trying new units, etc., experimenting. But this time I'm taking a different approach, and I actually want to just practice with the exact same list. And if I truly feel that I'm missing something, then maybe I'll switch a banner, or tweak the model count in one unit or another. But other than that, I'm really enjoying this list. I like the Manticore a lot. We're going bare, kind of almost bare bones here with it. I mean, granted, Lacerating Touch is very expensive. Still has a threat 5-up. She's just going to run around and hopefully murder stuff. Got a nice Exarch here, giving me that Stars Align, which is the one I really like. I switched out Chance of Redemption in this matchup, and instead chose a Magic Missile, for reasons you'll see in a moment. So the list is rocking... Looks like, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spells. And I also, on the Dread Acolytes, chose instead of instead of Illusory Paths, let's see. Oh yeah, I did Ice and Fire and the Hereditary this time around. Just trying that combination out. So everything else is as you see it. The big question, well, I wouldn't say it's a big question mark, but you could argue that, instead of having the Corsairs, instead I do maybe 2 units of 10 repeater auxiliaries. I like the flexibility of the Corsairs. Even though they're not scoring, I like the light troop stuff. I like the stand and shoot. I love their kind of mini combat potential as well. They're just a fun, flexible unit that I need to get some more models painted up. Other than that, 2 units of Dread Knights, loving it. The little support unit of Acolytes, loving it. Divine Altar of Nob. The Fury definitely kicks off once you get things into combat. So even though I don't report on it much, it definitely amplifies a lot of the killing power in the Spear unit, or in the Obsidian Guard, or in some cases the Manticore or the Dread Knights if they're close enough. So anyway, let's take a look at my opponent's list. So I was able to scale down the actual size of this list. So basically, we've got a Pyromancer, which, Goblin Witch, with a Potion of Power Preservation, which does come into effect into this game. I think that's a pretty awesome item. Effectively, when you fail a casting roll, you get to I guess you recycle all the dice that you failed to cast with. So I think that's seems like a very powerful item if you say fail to cast on 3 or 4 dice. So my opponent, let's see, did he switch out anything here? Yes, he took out Pillars of Fire and instead used his Hereditary. I think my opponent acknowledged that maybe taking Flaming Swords was a mistake and should have just switched it out for another Fireball, but that was, that's a conversation for the end game here. He's got 3 Demagogues. One's his General, one's his Battle Standard Bearer. They can pump out some attacks. They add a lot of damage output to this big goblin rabble of 50 goblins with poison spears and the Gogo Cauldron, so they effectively become unstable, one use only. we've got 2 captains to go in the smaller units to allow for the battle standard reroll, which is really nice. So he can play them out really wide and score objectives. He's got 8 Mag Gits, gross. We've got 5 units of veteran Orc Marauders for like scoring purposes. We've got 2 units of 15 Gnashers, 2 Git launchers, so they're effectively shooting Mag Gits at you. We've got a single unit of Neophytes. They're just in the back there to score. They do not, I don't think they have poison anymore. We did not play them that way. Just regular tomahawks. 2 units of 10-15 Gnasher-Dashers, 2 the Grotling scrap wagons, and then 2 wrecking teams. Exactly 4,000 points. Something to note here is that, where'd it go? Where's the Gnasher bait? It's in here somewhere. Oh god, I'm looking for it. Ooh, there it is, on the battle standard bearer. So when he pops the Gnasher bait, the Gnashers get an extra pip of maximized charges, and they get fury. So we'll see if that comes up later in the game. So today we're on Mountainous Crags. We're doing Frontline Clash again. So 12 inches up, 6 inches pinched in. The primary is secure target. So we effectively have 2 objectives. When you measure it out now, it should be around here, I think, like 12 inches. Yeah, so here, 12 inches in, and then over here, I like the little grid here, 12 inches in, so I guess they're effectively 48 inches away from each other, and you gotta try and secure the objective. 6 inches away from battle turns 3 onwards with a scoring unit, and your opponent has not. I love that wording, it's fun. My secondary was enslave and ransom, so I have to now kill. So I basically get a point now with the new enslave and ransom. I have to kill a unit in close combat effectively, so I get a point. If it is like caught in like a pursuit move, then I actually get 2 points. So that's sort of like the summarized version of that. And so in order for me to achieve this, I have to get a total of 4 points, or 4 tokens of me doing this action. For my opponent, he got Slay the Beast, so he has to kill my one out of the 2 most expensive non-scoring units. And my opponent and I were looking through the book trying to find if there's any sort of indication of if this applies to characters, right? And so we played it as if my 2 most expensive non-scoring units, non-scoring, keyword, well, 1 is the Manticore, so he's either got to kill the Manticore, or 2, the next one up is actually my Exarch, which is a non-scoring unit. So that's how we played it. So basically one out of the 2 characters needs to die for him. If that's wrong, comment, cite the page number. That's really helpful. Really appreciate it. So that's how we did it. So in the matchup analysis, my opponent and I had a bit of a debate about this. He felt that my list was a yellow or green matchup for me. Like, as in, I had the green matchup, or I had a yellow/green. I felt that this matchup was definitely like a red for my list. However, it could be unstable enough because the random movement and the random hits, like 2d6, things can spike, things cannot. And so there's a lot of unpredictability with some of this range damage, with a lot of this range damage that's coming in. However, I still think it's a red matchup for me because there's so much of it, and there's a lot of things that I just can't control about it. For example, with the Mag Gits, my opponent can release them at the top of my turn to actually prevent me from charging, which my list excels in combat, and it's where I want to be. And so, for example, if you put the Mag Git in front of a unit that I want to charge with Dread Knights, like, all of a sudden, that looks a lot less tasty because now I'm going to be receiving 3d6 hits if I touch that model in any way. if I charge into it. Versus if it moves into me, I take 2d6 hits. So it's really challenging to gauge, but because there's so many, and you combine that with Pyromancy, you combine that with impact hits, again, things that I can't, I can only do so much to prevent. And you have the wrecking teams as well. There's so much range damage that, it's very, very challenging. If I can get to combat, if my units can get to combat, yay. But, let's see if they even get there. And so that's why going first is super critical. And I also have very inefficient engagements. So all of my models, point per point, are just more expensive than his. So a Gnasher taking out an Obsidian Guard is just automatically a win for my opponent, because he's just less points. And so that's why, even engaging, I really need to focus on, not only being in combat, but just, really wiping out my opponent's units before they even get to attack. So to really minimize that hit back on me. So my plan here is to split the map, really forcing my opponent to focus on one side and still somehow find a way to maintain control of the other objective, so I can at least tie primary. I think both of us have fairly easy secondaries. I think my opponent has a lot of tools to deal with my characters with all that range damage. On the flip side, I think my opponent has to throw units in my way, and therefore I get to kill a lot of small, cheap units that stack up those points for me. So I think both of us have very achievable secondaries. That being said, generally my list, like I said earlier, is a close combat oriented list and absolutely outfights almost all of my opponent's units until we talk about that big unit of 50 spears, and that's where you really need to gang up on it to ensure that it will effectively crumble, because he's going to pop the Goga Cauldron. So with the micro side of things, again, all of that range damage is just going to be very challenging for me to deal with. I'm going to have to find a way to use my light troops, and then I'm taking 2 magic missiles this time to deal with the Mag Gits as best as possible. I'm going to have to sacrifice units no matter what, but hopefully I can at least use all that small arm fire shooting, like the repeater handbows. Hopefully they can pick off some Mag Gits when my opponent releases them, or maybe do some, pick off the wrecking teams, things like that, before they inevitably come into my lines. In terms of the Gnashers are agility 4 base, so most of my units are the elite elven profile or have spears, so I don't need to worry too much about the Gnashers charging me, because I just have enough combat output to just wipe the unit before they get to attack, hopefully, because most of my stuff is agility 6 base. And then, just taking note, that big spear unit is going to be unstable, so I really have to plan that engagement with a lot of different combo charges to ensure that I'm shutting down the Pyromancy, I'm shutting down the range damage, hopefully, and can kind of conglomerate onto that big unit. Okay, so I won the roll-off, so I chose to be the attacker to drop for first, so I gave my opponent my opponent got to choose the sides as the defender. So I deployed first, so left to right, we got Corsairs, we got Knights. Something to note here, we looked at the scouting rule, and as it was stated, or as from what we saw, I actually do have to deploy the scouts during my deployment phase. So I deployed them, and then I think this might actually be after Vanguard, because you have to deploy them 12 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone. So this is after Vanguard here. So scouts move up, the Black Cloaks, then we got the Spears with my Exarch in here and the Altar. We got the Obsidian Guard ready to move up, as well. We got Shadow Riders vanguarding up. Right behind them, we got Acolytes. I wanted to put these two units a bit more central because they have a lot of mobility and can react. Same with the Manticore. I wanted to kind of dart behind this hill in some way and force my opponent to look, use it to hide from these things, the Git launchers, but also kind of bully this side. And as you can see, the Corsairs are in the water feature, and then we have a unit of 6 knights with the Orlane banner on this side. Here are the 2 objective markers, are marked in green, and then for the Darmu Gardens, my opponent chose the water features actually before I deployed. So water features are dangerous terrain to my units without Strider or Water Strider. So yay, Corsairs, their Water Strider kicks in. the Kraken's hide, yes. Oh gosh, now I'm having this sinking feeling of like maybe that you got rid of Water Strider, so I need to look at it. Anyway, whatever. We played him as Water Strider, the Corsairs with the Kraken's hide. So yeah. And then the spears have the Strider banner anyway, which is why I take it. I just find the Stalker standard just really useful on this unit. So my opponent, left to right, we've got 25 Goblins, Gnashers, Gnasher-Dashers, Git Launcher, Wrecking Team, the big spear unit with his 3 characters in there, with his Pyromancy, his BSB, and the General. We got another Wrecking Team, we got Git Launcher, and more Gnasher-Dashers. Gnashers again, we got the Boar, quote-unquote, Orc Marauders. We got 2, or Pump Wagon, another unit of 25 Gnashers, or 25 Goblins with spears, and then we got another Scrap Wagon, whatever it's called. And then he's got his Neophytes off to the side, ready to ambush. Alright, turn 1, I move up. I don't move up as aggressively with the Manticore, actually, as I would have liked, because these Scrap Wagons are kind of zoning me from getting behind this hill because of their random movement. So I'm just keeping the Manticore back from now. I'm assuming at this rate, she's fine, because my opponent is going to be focusing down my infantry instead. Just starting to whittle down the elite infantry. So I don't think she's actually going to be the target of anything this turn. So everything here you see is just outside of 18 inches from the 3d6 random movement of the Scrap Wagons. I move up into the water. Again, here I'm not outside of 18 inches. He could potentially roll a 6 to get into me, but at this rate, I'd be, I think that will be 2d6 from the Wrecking Team instead of 3d6. I put the Black Cloaks up to, hopefully I can pick off a wound from this guy, from this Wrecking Team here. I am within 24 inches of it, so I'm going to try and missile it and then shoot it. Freaking Corsairs, they're Water Strider, but take a look, I rolled 4 6s for my DTs on the terrain, so 4 died. Luckily, taking terrain test doesn't cause a panic in this, so yay, I like that fix, I like that rule change. I am just outside of 6 inches from this unit of Gnashers, so if he does wish to charge me, which he probably will, I'm going to get a stand and shoot onto that unit, and the Blackcloaks are base agility 6. Their profile has changed a little bit, so now they're 1 attack, strength 4, AP 1, but they have paired weapons, which is cool. And their agility 6, offense now 7, defense 6. So these guys are pretty interesting. They're devastating charge distracting, but clearly I'm going to be getting charged this turn. In the magic phase, I get my opponent stops the ice and fire from the Acolytes onto this Wrecking Team, and then I get off the missile, the Fate's Judgment, onto this Wrecking Team. However, it does no wounds, and then the Gnashers, or the Blackcloaks, I think, do a single wound to this Wrecking Team here, so that was a bit of a bummer. So unfortunately, I did not do enough to kill it. So my opponent's turn 1, he charges the Gnashers, I do a stand and shoot, and again, I whiff a little bit. I only kill one Gnasher on the stand and shoot, which was a bummer. I was hoping to do just a little bit more. The Wrecking Team moves. He's able to squeak through this gap here with his Wrecking Team. I think technically it needs to be, like, it's a square base. I think technically it needs to be, like, facing this way. I don't know how these things work with the random movement. This one moves straight forward. I think this one was a 15 or 16 it rolled, so it almost got to the spears. And then, oh yes, so Pump Wagon, he crisscrosses his Pump Wagons. So this one was able to roll high enough where he got out of line of sight from this Manticore, and this one just rolled, they both rolled like a 13 or a 12 and rolled this way. So, yep, that's where they ended up. And anything to note, then everything else, he just kind of shuffles forward a little bit, as you see. So, magic, I'm able to stop, well, I think I made a mistake here. I kind of did some math in my head, and I stopped Cage of Embers, so I would have taken 2d3 plus 1 hits immediately, and then the unit would be taking 2d3 plus 1 hits whenever I do any sort of moving, charging, anything like that, pursuing, overrunning, etc. So I stopped that, and that allowed my opponent to get off a Pyroclastic Flow, and it killed 9 models, so that hurt. Ugh. Luckily, Obsidian Guard passed their panic, because General's right here, 10 rerollable, yay. So, the Black Cloaks, you know, they give a good show of themselves. They kill 7, because the 1 died from the stand and shoot, and then they killed 7. But, however, the remaining 7 Gnashers, just, like, blew them up. My opponent rolled, you know, really well on his, let's see, that's 10, 11, 12 attacks. So, yeah, he just rolled really well. Hitting on 4s, winning on 2s, he just blew up the unit. So, that was a little expected. And the Mag Git phase, we're going to call it, so on top of my turn 2, he releases 2 Fanatics. He releases one right here from this little unit. And he releases another right here, anticipating if my knights charge the Pump Wagon and I try to overrun, I'm going to hit this little Fanatic. So, yeah. Charges. What I didn't mention, he actually overran with his Gnashers, and I think he rolled a 12, which I was just outside of. I made it so I was either just outside of them connecting into the knights for an overrun. However, this is actually kind of worse for me because now I chose to charge them, which means I had to charge into the ruins, which sucks, and I lose a knight for my troubles. Then over here you can see my knights. I do elect to charge the front of this Pump Wagon. I charge the flank of this one with the Corsairs. Just as a note, I accidentally have too many models on this unit. My opponent and I correct it later. We decide that didn't really matter. But currently there's 14 models here. There actually should be just 12. So I do charge the flank here. I do come up with the Acolytes here. My goal is to just missile off the Fanatic. So, yeah. The Manticore moves up to be aggressive. I don't care if either of these units... Well, these outside of line of sight of the Gnashers and the Gnasher-Dashers, yeah, they could charge me. But I don't care. I have the Lacerating Touch. I have 7 attacks plus the Manticore, so I don't care if these guys charge me. Same with the Obsidian Guard. I move up. I think this is actually pretty far for goblins. I think this might be like a 6 on dice. But I'm able to move up and just say, like, I want you to charge me with the Obsidian Guard, because if you're charging me, then they're not getting blown up. So I'll take it. Previous turn, I forgot to mention the Git launchers. Both shot at they shot at the Obsidian Guard, I think. But failed to hit. So I mean, the spears just kind of keep everything in the front arc. I really couldn't move up too far with this wrecking team right here. That just was going to suck. So my plan here is with the Corsairs, I'm going to come and try and kill it with their bows, and then also probably try and get a missile off here to try and kill it. That's my goal. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in order to do this, I do have to come within 6 inches of the Gnasher-Dashers, so I don't get a stand and shoot against them. But whatever. No one dies to dangerous terrain. Actually, no, maybe one more model died. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's how you see it. In the magic phase, I am able to force through both the ice and fire, so I kill this thing, thank God. Oh my God, that was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, whew. So I kill this thing with ice and fire, and then I put another wound on this guy with, whatchamacallit, oh God, the Fate's Judgment. My opponent stopped the hereditary spell, I think, on the Corsairs. So I was able to get the 2 missiles off, so that was good. And then shooting, the Corsairs do take down the wrecking team. Oh, you'll notice that there's one less wrecking team here. My Shadow Riders came on through and died for the cause. When I look at this again, I wonder if I had enough movement to shoot through here, come right in between here, and then reform to hit both of them. I didn't think about it in the moment, but now when I look back at this, I do believe I'm able to do that, and if they're within range, of course, of the unit that I reform with, because it's like simultaneous. I think I saw a Proxy Table Gaming battle report where if you keep your wrecking teams really close, or your Mag Gits really close to each other, and you do the light troops reform, you can hit two of them with one unit. But alas, that did not happen here. But that's a thought for future games. So the knights absolutely eviscerate the scrap wagon. They get an easy overrun into the goblin spears. Yay, I'm excited for that. I'm just pushing them off the objective. Because they would be right here, I'm like a hair whisker outside of 6 inches of this, just FYI. And then, yeah, the Corsairs did 4 wounds to the thing. I had a charge and a flank. It completely whiffed on its grind attacks. It rolled a 1 and a 2, and then whiffed to wound. The goblins did like 1 wound, and so it just popped. So yeah, Corsairs, good job. And then, you know, it has to keep notice here, the acolytes are on top of the hill, so they can see this unit in case they need to countercharge. So, my opponent's turn 2. He releases 3 more fanatics, 2 in front of the spears, and then the third one from this unit right here, and then the one that was released beforehand was able to come through, as you can see, and I got lucky. The fanatic whiffed and only killed 1 knight. I made some clutch armor saves there, so happy about that. Yay! And so actual Orcs and Goblins turn 2. My opponent does decide to charge the Gnashers and the Obsidian Guard. Before he does, I do elect to put the Assassin into the unit. So he did have an informed decision there. It was at the very top of the turn I had to do that. I'm really happy about this. So I'm hoping I can just like completely wipe the units before they actually get to attack. Here he charges the Gnasher-Dashers. I'm just gonna have to. I chose to take it. I didn't feel like fleeing. I'd rather just take the charge. At this rate, you know, he moves the spearmen up. The knights can, of course, see them and charge, but it is, you know, it's poor positioning on my part. That the fact that I had to move into the ruin. But I did take a knight from here, so if I wield, I don't have to hit the fanatic. Granted, he can still pop back and hit me anyway if we happen to stick there, but that's I'm just gonna have to deal with that. Yeah. I think shooting his his Git launchers miss again. I'm just like, oh my god, breathing breaths of fresh air. Thank goodness. Pyromancy. I'm looking at. Yeah, so Pyromancy, he focuses on the Manticore, and the Manticore, I think, tanks her saves. I think I stopped Cage of Embers again onto the Obsidian Guard, or I think I stopped it on the Manticore. He Pyroflows her, and she makes all of her saves. So thank goodness for that. Oh, he does. I think he does try a. Oh yes, he gets a pyro. Whatever the breath weapon on one of these fanatics. He does get a breath weapon on one. However, I think it fails to do any wounds to the knights. My opponent, of course, can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I remember it at the moment. But I know he was able to get a pyro, like the breath weapon. Oh, yeah. No, I think correction. I think he might have just failed it. He failed the breath. He failed it onto this unit here. So I think we're good for now. I think we're all good. Oh my goodness, and after combat. So the assassin and the obsidian guard that can attack the knights just absolutely kill them before they get to attack. My obsidian guard leave 3 Gnashers alive, and those 3 Gnashers freaking spike. Oh yeah, my opponent does call the, he does use the Gnasher bait, by the way, that's important to note. So he has 3 Gnashers, 6 attacks, and those 6 attacks converted into 7 wounds. 3 freaking little Gnashers. Oh my god, I was just like, oh, damn it. Oh god, he just like rolled a bunch of Furies, and that hurt. But anyway, the Gnashers, they do break, because Gnashers no longer pop. I think I made another little micro mistake here. So they break, and then when they run, they're automatically destroyed, but I think I could have indeed choose to pursue them, not only to get me my secondary, but to put these Obsidian Guard a lot closer, so I might actually have a charge next turn on the War Machine, because at this rate, this Obsidian Guard unit is probably not going to charge the spears, because they're just too far whittled down. And then in the combat with the Corsairs, yeah, the Gnashers and the Corsairs just completely eat each other. It was hilarious. Like, I killed all of him, he attacked simultaneously, he killed all of me, and so that's how that went. The battle focus actually, or sorry, the fury on my units from the altar actually came into effect there really nicely, so I was happy about that. And my knights going in here, I kill a bunch of goblins. He should actually have one. Yeah, he put him there because he has a character in this unit. So it looks like he only has like exactly 25, but there should be one hanging off the back because he does have that character in the unit. So I kill, wow, hold on, 5, 10, 14 on the charge, which is nice. He only kills 1 back. I was a little like, ugh, that he has a little goblin with a spear, which became like AP4 all of a sudden. I was just happy that he failed to wound me because I was like, oh god, AP4, not good. But I do not break his steady or whatever it is. He's still steady, even if I had 1 rank, because it's not a combo. He has more ranks than me, so like my having 1 less rank versus non-rank wouldn't have made any difference. He would have lost by the same amount, and he passes on his leadership check. I do elect to reform my opponent. You won't see it in the picture, but I did ask my opponent if he could allow me to reform after the fact, and he was a good sport and allowed me to do so. So I do form into a rank this time. So this picture needs a lot of explanation. So, okay. I decided to charge his Gnashers with the spears. I charged the Obsidian Guard into their flank, and I charged the spears into the front. The spears would be taking, oh god, depending on how there were effectively on my opponent's turn, he released another fanatic, or on the top of my turn, excuse me. So there were effectively 4 fanatics kind of in this little arc. So the way that I like maximized it was the Obsidian Guard, I think, took 2 to the face, and the spears took 2. I think that's how that ended up working out. But regardless, the spears lost, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 casualties, and we did this wrong. They took a panic. I was outside. I was just outside of 12 inches from my general, so they had a 9 rerollable on the panic. They failed it both times from the Obsidian Guard. And so that meant that they were shaken. So my opponent informed me after the game that actually I should not have been taking panic checks for Force of Destruction. So this was actually a very big moment here, I think, because now the spears, it's a completely depleted unit. I can't speculate on what would happen, but getting them into combat was, of course, the important thing into this unit here, and trying to get the overrun into his spear unit. Hopefully try to start sniping some of these characters before they get to attack with the altar and my Exarch. So this meant that the spears were shaken. That's how we played it. This is wrong. You should not take panics on Forces of Destruction. So, oops. And then take a look. The entire Obsidian Guard unit got wiped out, and so that just left the assassin there to charge the flank of these Gnashers. Okay, so actually my turn, instead of the Mag Git phase. I do charge the flank with the Acolytes. I just need to make sure that this unit is destroyed, and so then what I do, my plan is like I said, my opponent did allow me to reform after this picture was taken, and so what I do is I chase them down with the Acolytes and then reform to get within 6 inches of the objective here, so I can start contesting it, because his scoring unit here is already contesting it. So we still have another, these 2 Mag Gits. So he put another one out from these Knights, so I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to not charge and just try and survive. Spears are stuck where they are because they're shaken, because that's how we played it. And the Manticore comes over here to threaten some of these war machines, to threaten the flank. Now, I will say this. There was an interesting opportunity here, looking back, to charge the Knights into the flank of his spear unit and to charge the Manticore into the flank of his spear unit, and to combo that with the spears in. However, this I think was a very far charge. Granted, they would have gotten a maximize because they are Day of Warfare, so they would have been using 3d6. But ultimately, I kind of decided the risk might have been too great, depending on what happened in this middle section, so I elected to not charge the Knights or the Manticore into this unit. Actually, no, excuse me, I think the Manticore would have had a front here. Yeah, my opponent did put the Manticore in its front, so I think that was just a little less appealing to me, if the Knights had failed that, and depending on what happened here with this, I just chose to not do it, but that could have been an option. But this is what I did. Manticore comes here to threaten flanks and to threaten war machines. And the Corsairs come over here actually to go on neophyte duty, because they can ambush and they are scoring in my opponent's list. So I do need to be careful of them coming on and threatening this objective here. So I just want to be able to push them off with the Corsairs in case my opponent chooses to do that. Magic phase. I do force through the hereditary onto this unit. But other than that, that is all my spells. So this was kind of funny. The assassin went nuts and killed 7 Gnashers because of the the fury from the altar. I rolled 3 6s to hit from 5 attacks. I did roll like a 1 in there as well, but like it made it so I killed 7 Gnashers, and they don't do anything to me, so they break. And I choose to put the assassin in front of his spears, just facing, so he can't charge mine, because I think if he charges me at this rate, I'll actually lose that fight. So the assassin is now acting as chaff. So, Orcs and Goblins turn 3. He pops out another Mag Git. I think this might have been his last Mag Git, and he kills off my assassin, which was very insulting, I'm not gonna lie. Oh well. The acolytes do end up running down the goblin unit. I don't lose any of my knights, and I reform, like I said, to now be right within 6 inches of this objective. So now we're at least tying it, the primary. I have at this rate achieved my secondary, so my opponent is now under pressure to start whittling down the spears and the manticore. So opponent turns to face the manticore. He brings the neophytes on to shoot at the manticore. The manticore is about to walk through a lot of fire. You can see one Mag Git decided to move in front of the spears to block a charge as well. So my opponent does also rally these Gnashers in after the shooting phase. In terms of magic, the manticore, out of a combination of shooting and magic, the manticore takes only 2 wounds. Thank goodness. And there's another picture of the manticore just walking through some fire. Alright, so in my turn, this is actually a picture after my magic phase. So I had a decision to make. I could either charge this war machine. We measured it. It was 11 to get into the second war machine. Obviously charge the front here, or charge this unit here. We did measure it. If I charged and connected here, this unit of spears was just a hair out of line of sight, so this spear unit could not see the manticore. So I'm happy about that for sure. I chose to charge this Gnasher unit. I don't know if this was the right decision here, but the reason why I didn't charge this war machine is I was worried of not hitting the overrun and then having him turn around, chaffing my spears with the Gnasher-Dashers, and then just focusing again all the magic missiles and the shooting with the neophytes, the pyro, and this Git launcher, because they don't have a minimum range, all into the manticore again. I just didn't want to risk that as a possibility, so I guess in this way, I don't know, I clear a chaff unit, I'm out of line of sight of this unit, and now I'm threatening the scoring unit with the manticore to try and push him off the primary. The neophytes are now a little more out of position unless he was, but if he does wall, my opponent has the predicament of now all the goblin units go to light troops, and now this unit, I guess, is not scoring. So these 2 wounds here are caused from an ice and fire you see from the acolytes. Unfortunately, I don't get any wounds from the second missile. And this is the manticore reforming to face the spear unit and try and push it off the objective. Okay, opponent's turn 1. My opponent does move up the neophytes, but they are out of range, which is good. Let's see, he does turn to face the manticore. He backs up with this spear unit. So in his turn, he's just going to attempt to whittle down my spear unit. The spears, indeed. So, with the combination of magic and shooting, yes, as you can see it, he gets another 3, 6, 9 kills on my spear unit, and I am now only 1, 2, 3, 4 rank and file units left. So he can now target the character if he would like to. So at this rate, my goal is to just charge Yeah, just charge the spears, try and push them off the objective. With this unit, I do have to overrun. With the Manticore, it's actually not far, but I can overrun outside of line of sight of this spear unit. You know, at this rate, like, I'm going to die to shooting and, you know, range damage and pyromancy anyway, so I just figured, you know what, let's just go for it. I don't lose any from the dangerous terrains. I do keep the acolytes back. I want to make it so that he has to really turn this unit if he wants to pyro them off. I'm going to keep him here to ice and fire this unit here. And I do want to make sure that if he happens to pop the Warbanner or whatever it is, do the war cry, this unit is right outside of 18 inches, so he can't just, whatever that distance is he needs, he can't just march up and tomahawk me to death. So I'm keeping the acolytes back. I'm keeping the knights on objective duty to at least keep me tying it. And the corsairs are just out of the game at this rate, also trying to save their points. So it's really about this fight here. In the magic phase, I do force through an ice and fire, and I do get off a stars align, rerolls to hit onto my spear unit. So, as you can see, the Manticore and the spears and the altar and the Exarch just go absolutely nuts and kill, I think, around 21 goblins. He kills one spear in return. The unit is auto-breaking. I believe I have to pursue with the altar here with the spears regardless. Oh yeah, because he auto-breaks. So the Manticore does pursue, rolls out of line of sight. Like, I roll a big number for the Manticore. It's actually pretty easy. I think it was like a 5 on Swift Stride to get out of line of sight of this unit. And then my spears roll a 6. I don't lose any more to DTs. Either that or we might have just forgotten to take it at this rate. Yeah, so I think I do need to mention there is actually one more wound on the Manticore because I think I did take another round of Pyro Flow or something from the previous magic phase from the Manticore. So she has now 3 wounds on her. She has 2 left at this point. Okay, so with that being said, my opponent has basically, he reforms. Instead of instead of charging my spears, because what I could have done is actually flee, and because the spears are below 25%, they die. However, the altar and the character is not. I think we ignore attachable models. So the altar and the character would just be fleeing at that rate this way. The spears would, yes, they would lose their points. So my opponent instead elects to just say, screw it, I'm just going to march up and pyro you and shoot you to death. So, yeah. And my opponent does exactly that. Oh my god, I was so freaking gutted. So this is where the freaking potion of preservation came in. So he marches up, he rolls 4 dice on the dragon's roar, or whatever it is, the breath weapon. He fails to cast it with 4 dice, uses his potion, saves it, and then he forces through not only a Cage of Embers on this Manticore, but also a Pyro Flow. So he puts the Pyromancy into the Manticore, right? So I didn't stop either spell. He did 1 wound with the Cage of Embers, and then my opponent gets through the final wound with Pyroclastic Flow on the Manticore. I was like, no! Oh, damn it. She tried. She really did. And then to make matters worse, the Git launchers open up and, you know, he's able to take out with all the hits that he got onto the unit. He rolled big. He took 4 hits. He divided it with 4 hits onto the character, 4 hits onto the spears. He took out the remaining spears and took out the character just like that. I was like, oh, crap. So now the altar is left alone. So that was a massive swing of points just in that one turn. Oh my goodness. Right. So the altar has just enough movement to march out of line of sight of his spear unit. You know what's funny? The altar has a charge value of 0. So the altar by itself cannot charge. Cool. Okay. So yeah, I marched the altar. It has mobility 5, so I'm assuming it can march. If it can't, again, comment, because it is a war platform. Now that I'm thinking about it as I'm making this video, I'm wondering if it can or cannot march. But so basically, I marched out of line of sight with the altar. So I'm going to force him to try and shoot it to death and pyro it to death. The acolytes go in for one more ice and fire on the neophytes, hoping to cause a panic. And I force it through, but I kill 5 and they stick. Damn it. Damn goblins. So, Orcs and Goblins turn 6. My opponent simply just turns around and turns the, the Git launcher, and the Pyromancer is just set its sights on the altar. The neophytes are out of range to be able to come up and do any sort of throwing weapon action, so they're just going to chill there for now. And all that being said, the altar survives, not with 1 wound left, but only took a single wound. So, yes, the altar saves all of its points. I think the final Git launcher missed his shot, and the Pyromancer, I stopped Pyro Flow, and I let Cage of Embers go through, and he didn't roll very well to wound. Still Resilience 5 with a 5-up, 5-up, so yeah, at the end of the day, the altar took a wound, and that was it. And at the end of the day, it was an Orcs and Goblins victory, a 12-8. We tied on the primary. We both got our secondaries. So, there you have it. Instead of units lost, I just decided to show what units I had left. I had the 12 Corsairs, 1 unit of Dread Knights, the Acolytes did save their points, and the altar saved its points. Yay! On my opponent's side, he had his Witch Doctor, his BSB, his General, the 50 Goblin Rabble, 10 Neophytes, and 1 single unit of Goblin Artillery. So, yeah. The difference was 3149 to 2380, which we calculated as a 12-8. So, there you have it. Whew, post-game thoughts. Okay, so yeah, me being able to go first was absolutely crucial. That allowed me to put immediate pressure on my opponent and not get pyroed and shot to death by Git launchers. Oh my god. That would have been awful. I think I was happy to have split that primary, because at the end of the day, like, I probably was in jeopardy of just losing it. So, yeah, it did mean that it took some units out of the rest of the game. But my concern was that they were just going to lose their points anyway, and this way it gave me a chance of contending for the primary. So, I think, I was being as aggressive as best as I could, but I did find it hard to gauge, like, okay, when do I charge and when do I just let the fanatics hit me? It's like 2d6 hits versus 3d6 hits. When does it make sense? And then, am I going to be in combat the next round to prevent him from shooting me, right? So it was just like a hard thing to kind of gauge. And I overall, I'm happy with how I played it, to be honest, because I had this matchup absolutely as a red. Like, this is not a good matchup for me. I think I could have made a slight change to the deployment, just skew a little bit to the right, to allow the Corsairs a bit more inward, like switch the Corsairs and the Knights around that I had from that left side. So still have the Knights there to, like, threaten my opponent's left objective, but have the Corsairs more central to do more, like, troop shenanigans and to move into the incoming, the wrecking teams, and more Mag Gits, like, that were in front of the spears instead of having them out wide. So I think actually that probably speaks going into the micro side of things. So it goes into, like, finding ways to better maneuver my light troops to handle all of that random movement nonsense. And then I talked about it earlier about the combo charging that big spear block. Like the idea would have been to combo the Manticore in to have my spears hit the Gnashers and then overrun into his spears and then combo charge the flank with my knights. But it wasn't guaranteed. And as it turns out, the way that we played it, going into the next little point here, we played Force of Destruction incorrectly. We found out after it was like I guess it's like the last sentence in the rule. Turns out, reading all the rules kind of matters. Reading is fundamental. But yeah, so we just did that incorrectly. It's a lesson for next time I play anything with random movers. Yeah, I'm wondering about the Manticore choices, like charging the Gnashers versus one of the Git launchers. I didn't, who knows at this rate with all of that damage. She did soak up a lot of range damage, so her lasting up until turn 5 was freaking awesome. And that's without the Flaming Aegis save. So, like, good job, Manticore. And then, yeah, it goes back to the Corsairs. Could I have, actually not needed, could I have gotten them involved into the game in the late game stages once I knew where the neophytes were, so he couldn't threaten the objective? But, maybe that's something I could have considered as well. That was something my opponent pointed out. So yeah, those are my thoughts there. Thank you so much for making it this far and watching all the way through. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you are a beautiful force of destruction, such as these Mag Gits you see here on this picture. Thank you so much, Chris, for the game. I got to drive out, and, since our local gaming club is now closed for the foreseeable future, we are now trying to make trips to each other's locations and get in games where we can, or search for other new gaming spots that are at least in a good, at this rate, 35-40 mile radius. So anyway, thanks again, Chris, for the game. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Ciao, ciao for now, y'all.